Thousands of officers were desperately searching for a missing 6-year-old boy, vanished without a trace in the scorching Arizona desert. Police drones scanned the endless sand. Helicopters circled overhead. And still they found nothing. No witnesses, no clues. Hope was fading fast until 2 police dogs, Blaze and Shadow, suddenly stopped dead in their tracks. Their ears shot up, their bodies stiffened. "What is it?" a handler called out. Then they growled, a deep warning growl that echoed across the empty wasteland. Their officers froze. These dogs never hesitated, never faltered unless something was horribly wrong. The blistering wind carried a nauseating scent. Fear, sweat, and something far darker. Something had triggered them, something urgent, something evil. And without warning, they sprinted into the desert. Officers chased after them, confused and panicked, unaware that just miles away, something unspeakable was waiting for them. But nothing prepared them for what the dogs found. There he was, a little boy with tangled brown hair, tied tightly to a massive cactus, thick ropes wrapped around his small body, his face streaked with dirt and dried tears. His red t-shirt was torn and stained. Before anyone could speak, he lifted his head, his wide hazel eyes filled with terror, and whispered 4 words that made every officer's blood run cold. "Stick with me until the very end, because this story takes a twist you will not see coming." Before we jump in, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Your support helps these stories come alive. And hey, I'm curious. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The nightmare began on a blistering Saturday afternoon in Red Canyon, a quiet desert community where children played safely in their yards. The 911 call came at 2:15 p.m., frantic and broken. 6-year-old Ethan Carter had vanished from his grandmother's backyard. She'd stepped inside for just 2 minutes to grab lemonade, and he was gone. No cry for help, no sound of a struggle, just an empty yard with a knocked-over tricycle. When officers arrived at the small adobe house on Cactus Ridge Drive, they found Ethan's grandmother collapsed on the porch steps, clutching his Spider-Man action figure, her voice hoarse from screaming his name. His parents arrived within minutes, his mother falling to her knees at the drag marks in the sand leading toward the fence. This wasn't a child who wandered into the desert. The pattern was too deliberate, too clean. Within 15 minutes, every officer in the county knew the truth that made their hearts sink. This was an abduction. The Saturday sun hung merciless over Red Canyon, baking the desert floor at a blistering 108 degrees. Inside the small adobe house on Cactus Ridge Drive, Margaret Carter hummed softly as she poured lemonade into a plastic pitcher, glancing through the kitchen window at her grandson playing in the backyard. 6-year-old Ethan was crouched near his tricycle, arranging rocks into what he called his dinosaur kingdom. His red t-shirt was already dusty from the afternoon's adventures. She turned to grab ice from the freezer. 2 minutes. Maybe less. When she walked back to the window, the yard was empty. The tricycle lay on its side, wheels still spinning slowly in the hot breeze. "Ethan." Her voice cracked as she rushed to the back door. "Ethan, honey?" Nothing. Just the whisper of wind through the mesquite trees and the distant cry of a hawk circling overhead. "Ethan." The pitcher slipped from her hands, shattering across the tile floor, lemonade spreading like spilled blood. The 911 call came in at 2:15 p.m., the operator barely able to understand the hysterical grandmother. Within 6 minutes, patrol units from Red Canyon PD were screaming down Cactus Ridge Drive, their sirens cutting through the desert silence. Deputy Chief Rodriguez was first on scene, finding Margaret collapsed on the porch steps, clutching Ethan's Spider-Man action figure to her chest, her voice hoarse from screaming her grandson's name into the empty desert. Officer Davis immediately secured the backyard, her trained eyes scanning every detail. What she found made her stomach turn. Clear drag marks in the sand led from where the tricycle had fallen straight to the back fence. Small sneaker prints. Then nothing. Someone had lifted him over. Lieutenant Martinez arrived moments later, his jaw tightening as he surveyed the scene. Behind the fence, in the loose dirt of the desert trail, fresh tire tracks cut deep grooves into the earth. A vehicle had been parked there, engine running, waiting. This wasn't random. This was planned. Martinez, over here. Davis's voice was tight. She pointed to a discarded plastic water bottle half buried in the sand near the fence. Commercial brand. The family doesn't drink this type. He crouched down, careful not to touch it. The bottle was still cold. Condensation barely dried in the heat. Someone had been watching. Waiting. Drinking water while they stalked a child. By 2:30 p.m., Ethan's parents arrived, his mother's screams echoing across the neighborhood as she fell to her knees at the drag marks. His father stood frozen, staring at the overturned tricycle, his hands trembling. Within 20 minutes, the entire community knew. Neighbors poured into the street, organizing search parties, printing flyers, their faces masks of horror. Red Canyon was a place where everyone knew everyone, where children played outside without fear. But as Lieutenant Martinez stood at that fence line, staring at those deliberate tire tracks disappearing into the vast desert, one terrible truth settled over everyone like a shroud. Someone had stolen Ethan Carter. And in this heat, every minute that passed brought them closer to a tragedy no one wanted to imagine. The clock was ticking. And somewhere out there, a 6-year-old boy was running out of time. The canine unit arrived at 2:45 p.m., the specialized truck kicking up dust as it skidded to a stop outside the Carter residence. Lieutenant Martinez felt a flicker of hope as he watched handlers Sergeant Cole and Officer Reeves emerge with their partners. Blaze, a powerful German shepherd with amber eyes that seemed to pierce through everything, and Shadow, a sleek Belgian Malinois whose dark coat rippled with coiled muscle. These weren't ordinary dogs. They'd found missing hikers, tracked fugitives across 50 miles of wilderness, and had a success rate that bordered on supernatural. Sergeant Cole led Blaze to Ethan's bedroom first, letting the dog memorize the scent from the boy's pillowcase and favorite stuffed dinosaur. Shadow did the same, both animals completely focused, their bodies still except for their quivering nostrils. Then they were brought to the backyard, to the drag marks, to the fence. The moment Blaze's nose touched the ground where Ethan had been taken, everything changed. The dog's entire body went rigid. His ears shot forward, then flattened back against his skull. A low whine escaped his throat, something Sergeant Cole had heard only twice in 7 years of partnership. Shadow circled the area once, twice, then stopped beside Blaze, her body mirroring the same tense posture. "What is it, boy?" Cole whispered, but he already knew. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. "I've never seen them react like this," Officer Reeves said quietly, her hand instinctively moving to Shadow's vest. "It's like they're afraid." Martinez stepped closer. "What do you mean?" Cole's face was pale. "They're not just tracking a missing child. They're tracking fear itself. That scent, whatever they're smelling, it's not right. It's panic, terror, trauma all mixed together." He paused, his voice dropping. "They can smell what that boy was feeling when he was taken." Both dogs suddenly lunged forward, straining against their leads with such force that their handlers stumbled. But they weren't heading toward the road, toward the tire tracks, toward the obvious escape route. Instead, they veered sharply left, pulling toward the open desert behind the property, toward the endless expanse of sand and cactus that stretched for miles. "Wait, that doesn't make sense," Martinez called out. The vehicle was at the road. Why would they go deeper into the desert? But Sergeant Cole was already moving, his boots pounding the sand as Blaze dragged him forward. "They know something we don't. Trust them." Shadow was running now too, her nose never leaving the ground, following an invisible trail that only she and Blaze could detect. The dogs moved with absolute certainty, weaving between creosote bushes and jumping over rocks, their powerful legs eating up the distance. Officer Davis grabbed her radio. "All units, K9 is heading east into the open desert, approximately 300 yards behind the Carter residence. Subject may have abandoned vehicle and continued on foot." The search party mobilized, following the dogs into the scorching wasteland. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, heat waves shimmering off the sand like ghosts. But Blaze and Shadow never slowed, never hesitated. They had the scent. They had the trail. And somewhere ahead, in that vast ocean of sand and stone and deadly heat, they knew Ethan Carter was waiting. The question was whether they'd find him before the desert claimed him forever. The dogs ran faster. Time was running out. The desert was a furnace, and they were walking into its mouth. The temperature gauge on Martinez's belt radio read 112 degrees and climbing. The search team moved in a tight formation behind the dogs, but the terrain was turning savage. What had started as relatively flat scrubland now rose and fell in jagged waves of rock and sand, dotted with clusters of cholla cactus that locals called jumping cactus for their vicious tendency to attach to anything that came close. Blaze and Shadow pressed forward relentlessly, their tongues hanging out, panting heavily in the crushing heat. But their focus never wavered. Every few yards, they'd stop, noses working the air, recalibrating, then surge forward again with renewed urgency. "They're picking up speed," Sergeant Cole said, his voice tight as he jogged to keep pace with Blaze. "That means the scent is getting fresher." Officer Davis scanned the horizon through her binoculars, seeing nothing but endless desert. No movement. No signs of life. Just heat shimmer and hostile landscape. How far could a kidnapper carry a 6-year-old in this hell? How long before the boy's small body simply shut down? Then Shadow froze. Her nose pointed at a cluster of cholla cactus, their spines glinting like thousands of tiny needles in the harsh sunlight. She barked once, sharp and insistent. Officer Reeves pushed through the brush carefully, wincing as a spine caught her sleeve. Then she saw it. "Here. I've got something." A small sneaker, bright blue with dinosaur prints, hung caught on the vicious spines of the cactus. The fabric was torn, shredded where it had been ripped away. But worse than that was what surrounded it. Dark red droplets speckled the rocks below, already browning in the heat. "Blood. He's injured," Martinez said, his voice hollow as he carefully photographed the evidence. Those spines went right through the shoe, probably into his foot. Davis's jaw clenched. So he's been walking or running through this barefoot or with one shoe. In this heat. On these rocks. The image made everyone sick. A terrified 6-year-old boy, dragged or forced through one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. His foot bleeding, the sun cooking him alive with every passing minute. Blaze suddenly threw his head back and released a sound that made everyone's blood freeze. Not a bark. Not a howl. Something primal, urgent, almost human in its desperation. Shadow joined him, both dogs straining so hard against their leads that Sergeant Cole had to brace his full weight to hold Blaze back. "They've got something," Cole shouted. "They're onto him. They can smell him close." The dogs were nearly frantic now, their movements aggressive and determined. Whatever trace of Ethan they were following, it was strong, concentrated, recent. Without waiting for orders, both dogs broke into a full sprint, their handlers running behind them, the rest of the search team scrambling to keep up. They crashed through brittle brush, leaped over rocks, navigated around towering saguaro cacti that stood like silent witnesses to the horror unfolding in their domain. Martinez's radio crackled. "Martinez, it's been 90 minutes since abduction. Medical says a child his size has maybe 2 hours left in this heat before organ failure." He didn't respond. He just ran faster, following those two magnificent animals who were fighting against time itself, racing towards something they could sense but the humans couldn't see. Somewhere ahead, Ethan Carter was waiting. And the desert was trying to kill him. The canyon opened before them like a wound in the earth, its walls rising 30 feet on either side, casting long shadows that offered no relief from the murderous heat. Towering saguaro cacti dotted the landscape like ancient sentinels, some reaching 20 feet high, their arms stretched toward the cloudless sky in silent supplication. Blaze and Shadow plunged into the canyon without hesitation, their barking echoing off the rock walls in a cacophony of urgency. Then, simultaneously, both dogs stopped. Their bodies went completely still except for their heaving sides. They'd found something. Sergeant Cole rounded a massive boulder and his breath caught in his throat. "Oh God! We've got him! Medic! Medic now!" There, bound to one of the largest saguaro cacti in the canyon, was Ethan Carter. The thick rope had been wrapped around his small torso at least 4 times, pressing him against the cactus so tightly that dozens of spines had pierced through his red t-shirt into his back and arms. The shirt itself was torn, stained dark with sweat and blood and dirt. His face, that innocent 6-year-old face, was streaked with grime and dried tears, freckles barely visible beneath the filth. But it was his eyes that would haunt them forever. Wide, glassy, barely focused. The eyes of a child who'd been pushed beyond the limits of what any human should endure. "Ethan, buddy, we're here." "You're safe now," Martinez said, his voice cracking as he dropped to his knees in front of the boy. But Ethan didn't respond. His lips were cracked and bleeding, split open from dehydration. His skin, when Martinez touched his forehead, was burning hot, radiating heat like a furnace. Officer Davis was already on her radio. "This is Davis, we have the victim. He's alive but critical. We need immediate air evac to the canyon coordinates. He's in severe heat distress, possible heat stroke." The 2 paramedics who'd been trailing the search team crashed through the brush, medical bags already open. Blaze and Shadow stood guard on either side of Ethan, as if protecting him from further harm, their bodies still on high alert. "Temperature's 104.7, the lead paramedic said as she pressed a thermometer to Ethan's temple. "He's in heat stroke territory. We need to cool him now." Her partner was already cutting through the ropes with trauma shears, working carefully to avoid driving the cactus spines deeper. Each loop of rope that fell away revealed more damage underneath. Rope burns had carved red welts into Ethan's arms, some bleeding, some already starting to blister in the heat. The moment he was free, they laid him on a cooling blanket they'd spread in the meager shade of the canyon wall. Ice packs went under his arms, behind his neck, against his inner thighs where the major blood vessels ran close to the surface. And 4-line went into his small arm within seconds, pumping life-saving fluids into his dehydrated body. "Come on, Ethan," the paramedic whispered as she worked. "Stay with us, buddy. You're going home." Officer Reeves gently pulled Blaze and Shadow back, but both dogs refused to move far. They sat, rigid and watchful, their eyes never leaving the small broken boy they'd tracked through miles of hell to find. Then Ethan's eyes flickered. His cracked lips moved, trying to form words. Martinez leaned closer, his ear near the boy's mouth. What Ethan whispered next made every drop of relief evaporate like water on desert stone. "He's watching us, right now." The canyon opened before them like a wound in the earth, its walls rising 30 feet on either side, casting long shadows that offered no relief from the murderous heat. Towering saguaro cacti dotted the landscape like ancient sentinels, some reaching 20 feet high, their arms stretched toward the cloudless sky in silent supplication. Blaze and Shadow plunged into the canyon without hesitation, their barking echoing off the rock walls in a cacophony of urgency. Then, simultaneously, both dogs stopped. Their bodies went completely still except for their heaving sides. They'd found something. Sergeant Cole rounded a massive boulder and his breath caught in his throat. "Oh God! We've got him! Medic! Medic now!" There, bound to one of the largest saguaro cacti in the canyon, was Ethan Carter. The thick rope had been wrapped around his small torso at least 4 times, pressing him against the cactus so tightly that dozens of spines had pierced through his red t-shirt into his back and arms. The shirt itself was torn, stained dark with sweat and blood and dirt. His face, that innocent 6-year-old face, was streaked with grime and dried tears, freckles barely visible beneath the filth. But it was his eyes that would haunt them forever. Wide, glassy, barely focused. The eyes of a child who'd been pushed beyond the limits of what any human should endure. "Ethan, buddy, we're here. You're safe now," Martinez said, his voice cracking as he dropped to his knees in front of the boy. But Ethan didn't respond. His lips were cracked and bleeding, split open from dehydration. His skin, when Martinez touched his forehead, was burning hot, radiating heat like a furnace. Officer Davis was already on her radio. "This is Davis, we have the victim. He's alive but critical. We need immediate air evac to the canyon coordinates. He's in severe heat distress, possible heat stroke." The two paramedics who'd been trailing the search team crashed through the brush, medical bags already open. Blaze and Shadow stood guard on either side of Ethan, as if protecting him from further harm, their bodies still on high alert. "Temperature's 104.7, the lead paramedic said as she pressed a thermometer to Ethan's temple. "He's in heat stroke territory. We need to cool him now." Her partner was already cutting through the ropes with trauma shears, working carefully to avoid driving the cactus spines deeper. Each loop of rope that fell away revealed more damage underneath. Rope burns had carved red welts into Ethan's arms, some bleeding, some already starting to blister in the heat. The moment he was free, they laid him on a cooling blanket they'd spread in the meager shade of the canyon wall. Ice packs went under his arms, behind his neck, against his inner thighs where the major blood vessels ran close to the surface. And 4-line went into his small arm within seconds, pumping life-saving fluids into his dehydrated body. "Come on, Ethan," the paramedic whispered as she worked. "Stay with us, buddy. You're going home." Officer Reeves gently pulled Blaze and Shadow back, but both dogs refused to move far. They sat, rigid and watchful, their eyes never leaving the small broken boy they'd tracked through miles of hell to find. Then Ethan's eyes flickered. His cracked lips moved, trying to form words. Martinez leaned closer, his ear near the boy's mouth. What Ethan whispered next made every drop of relief evaporate like water on desert stone. "He's watching us, right now." The mobile command post had been set up in a clearing half a mile from the canyon, a cluster of vehicles and portable equipment humming with frantic activity. Inside the medical trailer, Ethan lay on a gurney surrounded by monitors and 4 bags, his small body looking even smaller under the thermal blankets and medical equipment. His core temperature had dropped to 102, still dangerous but no longer critical. He was stable enough to talk, though every word seemed to cost him immense effort. Lieutenant Martinez sat beside him, his voice gentle despite the urgency clawing at his chest. "Ethan, I know this is hard, buddy. But anything you can tell us about the man who took you might help us stop him from hurting someone else." Ethan's eyes, those haunted hazel eyes, stared at the ceiling of the trailer. When he spoke, his voice was flat, disconnected, the way trauma survivors often sound when recounting their nightmares. "He kept talking on the phone," Ethan whispered. "To someone. He said he had to check on the others first. That I was just the first pickup today." Martinez felt his stomach drop. The others. Did he say who? He had a list. On his phone. He kept looking at it. Ethan's breathing quickened, the heart monitor beeping faster. There were pictures. Other kids. He showed me. He said they were all part of the delivery schedule. The words hung in the air like poison. Martinez exchanged a look with Officer Davis, who stood near the door, her face ashen. "What else did you see on his phone, Ethan?" Martinez asked carefully. "Maps. Lots of maps. Different places with pins on them. Schools. Parks." He zoomed in on some of them and laughed. A tear slid down Ethan's dirt-streaked face. He said business was good, that his boss would be pleased with this week's collection. Collection. The word made Martinez want to vomit. This wasn't an isolated predator acting on twisted impulses. This was organized, systematic, a trafficking operation with infrastructure, hierarchy, schedules. Ethan wasn't a victim. He was merchandise. Davis stepped outside and immediately got on the radio. "This is Davis. We need FBI Child Exploitation Unit now. Multiple potential victims." This is a trafficking ring, repeat, organized trafficking ring. Inside, Martinez pulled out his phone and opened the photos Chen had sent from the kidnapper's burner. He scrolled through them with growing horror. Playgrounds across 3 counties. Time-stamped surveillance photos. Notes about routines, schedules, which children walked home alone. 14 different children marked in the photos. 14. Ethan. Did he say where these other children were? Where he was taking you? He said I'd see them soon. That we were all going to the same place until the boss decided what to do with us. Ethan's voice broke. He said nobody would find us. That the mine has places where nobody looks anymore. The mine. Copperhead Mine Complex. Miles of abandoned tunnels, countless shafts and chambers, most of them unmapped since the operation shut down 40 years ago. If this trafficking ring was using it as a holding facility, those children could be anywhere in that underground maze. Martinez stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. The mission had just expanded from catching one kidnapper to dismantling an entire network. And somewhere in those tunnels, other children might be imprisoned, waiting, terrified. He keyed his radio. All units. This is Martinez. We're no longer dealing with a single suspect. Prepare for possible hostage situation and multiple suspects at the mine complex. We may have other children already held there. I want tactical teams, FBI, and every available officer converging on Copperhead Mine immediately. The rescue was over. The war had just begun. The sun was dying over the desert, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire as the tactical team converged on Copperhead Mine. The abandoned complex sprawled across the landscape like a graveyard of rust and decay. Collapsed buildings with walls torn away by decades of wind. Processing equipment frozen in place, skeletal and silent. Mine shaft entrances yawning like mouths leading into darkness. Blaze and Shadow had the scent again, stronger now. The dogs moved with lethal purpose through the ruins, their handlers struggling to keep pace. Boot prints in the dust confirmed what they already knew. He was here. Somewhere in this maze of industrial wreckage. Martinez signaled the team to spread out, creating a perimeter around the central structures. No one was getting out of this complex. Not this time. Then movement. A shadow shifting inside what remained of the foreman's office, a structure with 3 walls still standing and a roof half collapsed. Blaze's ears shot forward. Shadow's body coiled tight. The man burst from the building like an explosion, sprinting toward a dusty pickup truck parked behind a rusted ore crusher. He was tall, lean, wearing tactical pants and a dark jacket despite the heat. His face was weathered and hard, the face of someone who'd stopped seeing people as human long ago. Police! Stop! Davis shouted, positioning herself between him and the truck. He didn't hesitate. The tire iron appeared in his hand as if by magic, and he swung it in a vicious arc aimed at Davis's head. She managed to duck, but the metal caught her shoulder with a sickening crack. She went down hard, her weapon skittering across the dirt. Take him! Sergeant Cole shouted, releasing Blaze's lead. The German Shepherd was airborne in an instant, 80 pounds of muscle and fury launching at the suspect's arm. Teeth clamped down on the wrist holding the tire iron, and the man screamed as the weapon fell from his grip. He tried to swing at Blaze with his free hand, tried to reach for something in his jacket, but Shadow was already there. The Belgian Malinois moved like liquid death, circling behind him in a blur of dark fur, cutting off any escape route back toward the mine tunnels. When the man tried to pivot away from Blaze, Shadow lunged, hitting him low and hard in the back of the knee. His leg buckled. The coordinated attack lasted less than 5 seconds. Blaze maintained his grip on the man's arm while Shadow positioned herself at his throat, her growl promising instant violence if he moved. The suspect went down face-first into the dirt, both dogs pinning him with the efficiency of predators who'd trained together for years. Martinez and 2 officers were on him immediately, wrenching his arms behind his back, zip ties biting into his wrists. Officer Chen pulled him up roughly, checking for weapons. A knife in his boot, zip ties in his jacket pocket, and keys in his hand. Keys he'd been reaching for when the dogs took him down. Keys to the pickup truck. Martinez approached the vehicle, weapon drawn. Through the dusty window, he could see a locked metal toolbox on the passenger seat. He shattered the window with his baton and pulled the box out, forcing it open with a pry tool. The contents made his blood turn to ice. Zip ties, rolls of duct tape, a burner phone, and a handwritten list, 23 names with ages beside them, locations and schedules meticulously documented. 14 of the names had check marks beside them. 9 remained unmarked. Martinez looked at the man now being loaded into a patrol car, Blaze and Shadow still standing guard, their bodies vibrating with controlled aggression. They had him. But this monster wasn't the end. He was just the beginning. 3 weeks had passed since that nightmare day in the desert. The Red Canyon Community Center was packed wall to wall with residents, news cameras, and local officials, all gathered to honor the heroes who'd saved Ethan Carter's life. Balloons in police blue and gold filled the space, and a banner reading "Thank you Blaze and Shadow" hung above the small stage. Ethan stood at the microphone, his voice stronger now though bandages still wrapped his arms where the rope burns were healing. His light brown hair had been carefully combed, and he wore his best shirt, the one with dinosaurs on it. In his hands, he held 2 handmade medals crafted from cardboard and glitter, each bearing a paw print he'd traced himself. "These are for you," he said softly as Blaze and Shadow sat perfectly still before him, their intelligent eyes watching his every movement. "Because you saved me." He placed the medals around their necks, and then, without hesitation, wrapped his small arms around Blaze's thick neck, burying his face in the dog's fur. The German shepherd remained motionless, patient and gentle, as if he understood the weight of what this moment meant. Shadow pressed against Ethan's side, and the community center erupted in applause and tears. Margaret Carter, Ethan's grandmother, stood with his parents, no longer the broken woman consumed by guilt who'd shattered a lemonade pitcher 3 weeks ago. She approached Sergeant Cole and Officer Reeves, her voice trembling with emotion. "You brought my grandson home. I'll never be able to thank you enough. Never." But even as the ceremony continued, even as the mayor presented official commendations, Lieutenant Martinez stood at the back of the room, his phone pressed to his ear, his expression darkening with every word the forensics analyst spoke. "The encryption was sophisticated, but we broke it," the analyst said. The messages reference next pickup locations across 3 states: Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada. There are photos of at least 30 different locations. Schools, playgrounds, youth centers. This network is massive, Martinez. Way bigger than we thought. Martinez felt his jaw clench. They'd captured one man. One piece of a machine that was still operating. At that moment, both Blaze and Shadow's heads snapped toward the front entrance simultaneously. Their bodies went rigid, ears forward, every muscle tensed. The same posture they'd taken in the desert when they'd sensed the kidnapper watching from the rocks. Sergeant Cole immediately noticed. "What is it, boy?" Martinez was already moving, pulling up the station's security feed on his phone. The live camera covering the parking lot showed a black pickup truck with heavily tinted windows parked across the street, engine running. Someone sat in the driver's seat, but the angle and tinting made identification impossible. What was visible was the camera lens pressed against the window, aimed directly at the community center entrance. "All units, suspicious vehicle outside the community center, black pickup recording our position," Martinez barked into his radio, already running for the exit. But by the time he and 3 officers crashed through the doors and reached the street, the truck was gone. Only tire marks remained, burnt into the asphalt from a rapid departure. Back at the station, in the interrogation room, the captured kidnapper sat across from an FBI agent, his hands shackled to the table. When told about the black pickup truck, about someone photographing the ceremony, he leaned back in his chair and laughed. It was a cold, hollow sound that made the agent's skin crawl. "You think catching me changes anything?" He smiled, showing yellowed teeth. I'm nobody. Just the collector. He's the architect. The boss. And he's already picked the next kid. Probably grabbed them while you were busy with your little ceremony. His smile widened. He's always 3 steps ahead of you. Always watching. Always hunting. Martinez stood in the observation room, watching through the one-way glass as he reviewed the security footage. Frame by frame, he examined the black pickup. The driver's face was completely obscured by shadows, a hat brim, and the tinted glass. A ghost. A phantom pulling strings from the darkness. The real predator was still out there. Still operating. Still hunting children across 3 states. Martinez looked down at Blaze and Shadow, who sat beside him in the observation room, their eyes fixed on the monitor as if they too understood what they were seeing. We're not done, are we? He said quietly. Blaze's ears twitched forward. Shadow's body tensed. The war was far from over. It was only beginning. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories.